everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Communication and Education Technology. So in our previous sessions, as we are dealing with the 7th unit, which is educational media, we have discussed several topics under this unit, which is what are educational media, what are the several characteristics of educational media, what are the purposes of educational media, and what are the different types of educational media. Under the types of educational media as well, we have discussed about projecting visual aids, non-projecting visual aids, and graphic aids such as blackboard, overhead projectors, OHP, film strips, exhibition, and flashcards. In this session today, we are going to discuss about models. Models is a very important part of nursing education. We need to see the models of different organs such as heart or liver. Models are major or models are very important part of nursing education. Let us see in detail what are models, what are the different purposes of models, what are the different guidelines to be followed while using models as educational material, and advantages and disadvantages of using a model as an educational media. A model is a recognizable representation of a particular object, of a particular thing. So when we say a model is a representation of a particular object which is usually three-dimensional. It has the height, the width, and the depth. When we say model, it is a representation of a particular object which is usually three-dimensional, which means it has the height, width, and the depth, and it feels like a real object. Here in the picture, you can see a model of a fetus. A model is a representation which has three different dimensions: the width, the height, and the depth, which makes the object feel like a real object. In other words, models can be life-size miniatures, it can be oversized, or it can be the original size of the real object. It can be a working model or a non-working model. And regardless of the size of the model or whether it is working or not, it is one of the most useful teaching aid that can be used in teaching learning process to enhance the learning process among the students. When we take the word model, a model means imitation or a replica of the real object. So a model is an effort of an individual to represent the real object with three different dimensions. It can be the same size of the real object, it can be larger than the real object, or it can also be smaller than the real object. Oversized model or a smaller size model than the real object is used for teaching learning process. As I said, it can be of the original size, it can be larger than the real object, or it can be smaller than the real object. Now, if a larger or a smaller than real object is used, the teacher, while taking the class, must teach the students or must give a clear instruction to the students about the original size of the model. For example, as a teacher, if I am taking a model of the heart, the model of the heart that I have taken is larger than the real size heart of a human. When as a teacher I am taking a class for the students must be told clearly about the actual size of the heart. So whenever a teacher is using a larger model or a smaller model, the teacher must make sure that the teacher instructs or tells the student about the actual size of the real object. We've understood what are models. Let us now see what are the purposes of models. Why should models be used in education? What are the several purposes it has to serve? The very first purpose of using a model is when a real object cannot be brought to the institution. So when the real object is far away from the organization, when the teacher is not able to take her students away to show the real object, models can be used in such cases. That is the very first purpose of using a model. As models are three-dimensional, it gives a realistic view to the students, it gives a realistic feel to the learners as well as for the teachers. Second purpose of using a model, or second reason why model can be used, is because the real object is too large to be brought to the organization or to the classroom. When the real objects are very large, wherein the teacher is not able to bring the object to the organization, to the classroom to show it to her students, the teacher can use a model to give a realistic and concrete idea about the particular object to her students. When the real objects are too dangerous to be handled by the students, in such situations, models can be used. The fourth purpose of using a model as an educational media is that the real objects are very expensive for the teachers or for the organization to afford. It is not easy to bring real objects to show to the students or to make the students understand about the particular object. In such cases, when the objects are very expensive, models can be used in place of the real objects. Another purpose of using a model can be because the real objects are too small to be seen or cannot be seen. For example, when the students are taught about atoms. Now, it is obvious that the atoms are not visible to the naked eye. It is not possible to show the atom to the students. Rather, we can take a model of an atom to show to the students that this is how a structure of an atom looks like. This is a model of an atom. So when the real object is very small as well as when it is very big to be brought to the organization, models can be used. When the objects are very expensive for the organization to afford, models can be used. And when the objects are too dangerous to be felt or to be handled by the students, models can be used in such cases as well. There are other purposes of using model in teaching learning process. One of the purpose of using the model is that model simplifies the concept. So of course, with the use of model, even though it is not necessary for the teacher to use the model or to show it to the students, the teacher, if uses a model, obviously the concept becomes much more simplified as the students are able to view what the teacher is explaining, as the teacher is able to show to the students what he or she is explaining. So model helps to simplify the concept as well. Another purpose of using a model is that model helps to clarify the abstract concept of knowledge. So when the concept is abstract, when the students are supposed to imagine about a particular thing, when students are shown a model, when the learners are shown a model, it is obviously easy for them to comprehend what is being taught. The concept becomes more concrete as they are able to visualize about the concept that is being dealt by the teacher. Another purpose is, of course, they facilitate visualization and the phase of learning quickens with the use of model. The students are able to visualize the model of a particular object, which will obviously quicken the phase of learning, quicken the phase of understanding about the particular topic. It quickens the phase of learning. Models, as I said, can be used to clarify the concept to the students when the real object cannot be brought to the classroom. When a teacher wants to give a clear idea about a particular concept to her students, such as about bridges, about dams or mountains, such things cannot be brought to the classroom. So in such cases, the model of a dam, the model of a bridge or a mountain can be used in order to clarify the concept or in order to teach to the students. We all know models can be a working model or a still model. When functional models are used, it helps to clarify the real working or real operation of a particular concept. So with the use of functional models, the students will get to know the real operation of a particular instrument, of a particular machine or a particular system. And the last purpose is that it promotes creativity and interest among the students. So with the use of model, of course, the students become more interested to learn the topic as they are able to visualize, as the abstract content is more clear for the students. Students' interest and creativity is increased and maintained throughout the presentation. Let us now discuss about the different types of models that are available. So there are various types of models that can be used for educational purposes. There are solid models, there are working models, there are scale models, cutaway models, sand models, and simplified models. So there are majorly 6 different types of models, which is solid, working, cutaway or X-ray models, sand models, scale models, and simplified models. Let us see one by one what are these different types of models. The first one is the solid models. Now, as the term suggests, a solid model is a replica of a particular object, but the solid model only represents the external feature or the external structure of the real object. It does not show the internal structure or the internal feature of the real object. Solid models are usually made up of clay, plaster of Paris, wood or iron, and it usually represents the external structure of a particular item or a particular object. For example, a globe or a clay model of human or an animal. Solid model is a replica of the real object, but it only displays the external feature of a particular object. Usually, solid models are made up of iron, it is made up of wood, clay, or plaster of Paris. The second type of model is cutaway or X-ray models. X-ray models are the models that shows the internal structure of a particular object. Cutaway models or X-ray models are usually used to see how a particular object or a particular thing looks from the inside. Now, in many different aspects, when we have nursing education, we obviously have to understand about the internal structure. For example, internal structure of the heart, to understand how it functions, how it operates. So in order to understand the internal structure of the heart, we need to have a model of a heart that shows a complete image about the internal structure of the heart and not just the external feature of the heart. In such cases, cutaway models can be used. Very important thing about cutaway models or X-ray models are that it is not easy to prepare a cutaway or an X-ray model. An expert is required to prepare an X-ray model of any given object. The third one we have is the working model. As the name suggests, a working model is a model that shows the functioning or the operation of the real object or the original object. In some cases, when we learn about how things function or how it operates, it makes a concept very easy. In order to make sure that the concept is made easy for the students understand the functioning of a particular machine, working models can be used. For example, a model showing the blood flow in the human body. Working model is a model that shows the operation or the functioning of a particular system, a particular machine, or a particular instrument. Working models are very much useful in order to understand how a particular object functions. There are other three types of models. Sand models. Now, as the term suggests, sand models are usually made up of sand, clay, and sawdust. For example, a sand model to represent a tribal village or a sand model to represent a forest area. Sand models are not common types of models that are used for educational purposes. Next one, we have scale models. A scale model gives the exact representation of the original object, which means a scale model is a physical model which is geometrically similar to the real object or the real concept. When correct representation of the original object is required, scale models are used. Now, scale model gives the exact representation of the real object, which means it is geometrically similar to the real object. For example, a small-scale model of Damodar Valley helps the students to have a good idea about the big enterprise. Scale models are geometrically similar to the real objects. And the last type of model are the simplified models. Now, simplified models is again a model which has a rough representation of the real object. Simplified model shows the external structure roughly of a real object. Simplified models used for educating primary children, the animals, the birds, or the fish that children make out of clay, sand, or straws are few examples of oversimplified model. They are not the exact representation of the real object, but gives a representation of the real object, has the external structure similar to the real object. Let us now see what are the essential qualities of a model. The first one is usefulness. So, of course, a model is a 3D representation of the real object. It must be useful in the educational purposes for the teachers to make the concept more clear for their students. The second feature or the quality of a model is accuracy. The model must represent or imitate the real object accurately. It must be the right representation of the real object. The third one is simplicity. So, of course, a model should be simple as possible so that the concept is made more understandable for the students. Let us now see the advantages of using the model as an educational media. The first advantage is that model heightens the reality and it makes learning direct as well as interesting for the students as they are three-dimensional. Models are three-dimensional, so it will heighten the reality. The learners will feel like they are seeing the real object. They are able to visualize the real object, which will increase the learning as well as the interest of the students. Models explain a complex topic or a complex concept in a simplified manner, which will lead to easy comprehension of the particular topic. With the use of models, complex topics can be made simple, which makes it easier for the learners or for the students to understand. The third advantage of using a model is that models are long lasting. Once it is purchased, models can be kept for several years and can be used repetitively for a long period of time. It is a long lasting educational media that can be used in the organization. Another advantage of model is that still models can be made easily with all the waste materials such as straws, empty boxes, pins and clips, which are usually discarded materials. Still models can be made with all the discarded materials, which is one of the major advantages of using models. The next advantage of using a model is that models make learning interesting. Model makes use of all the five senses of an individual, and it makes the learning much more effective than when it is just taught verbally. These are the various advantages of using a model. Let us now see what are the limitations of using a model. The very first disadvantage is what we discussed in the purposes as well. The models are to be prepared by an expert. Different types of models cannot be made by teachers or by the students. Experts are required to make the models, especially the cutaway models or the x-ray models. Another disadvantage is that models may be very expensive to be brought to the organization. These are the advantages and disadvantages of using a model. To summarize, today we have discussed about models. We've seen what are the different types of models, what are the several purposes of models, what are the different types, and what are the various advantages and disadvantages of a model. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session. Thank you and have a great day ahead.